Thank you for tuning in to Model Car Building and Retirement. My name is Ken, and this is part 2 of a 4-part series on how to achieve a show car finish on your model car. Now, I know in the first episode I said 5 parts, but it looks like I'm a little bit ahead of schedule, so recalculating things out, it should be wrapped up in 4. The first one covered prepping the part all the way through primer, so if you haven't seen that one, I'd advise you to go back and watch that video first. In this video, we are going to prepare the part from primer all the way through color. The next video will be preparing it through urethane clear and spraying the clear. And then the final video will be color sanding and buffing for that show car finish at the end. So join me, and I hope you enjoy. Okay, so as I said in my last video, that once you prime it, you need about 12 hours for cure time. But I did not mention that if you use a food dehydrator, which I bought a little one from Amazon, and I'll link that in my description as well, but you can speed up the cure time. I usually will let a part sit in the dehydrator without turning it on for the first hour to let all the paint settle and make sure that they're, all the leveling agents and that do their job and outgases. But to speed up the curing process, I'll go like 110 degrees for about 4 hours on primer. And so it's about 4 hours later now, so I don't have to wait the whole 12. So I'm looking over the body, and it looks really good. I mean, I don't see any issues. I don't see dust. I don't see hairs. I really don't see any issues whatsoever. The only thing I do want to do is, because I'm going to bare metal foil, I have learned that foil is so thin that it will show anything bumpy below it. So what you want to do is, I'm just taking my Trizac 5000 here, and I am just hitting the window trim in case there's any dry spray from the primer or whatever. But I have found that really gives you a superior result on your bare metal foil. I was at the Buckeye Classic Car Show a couple of months ago, and I noticed a guy who just had outstanding bare metal foil work, and I was talking to him, and the way he was able to pull it off was that every step along the way, he made sure that he sanded his window trim. So I'm just hitting that real quick and close. Notice one other little tiny area here, almost not noticeable at all. I think it's a little scratch from when I was doing my door jambs. But I have no other areas at all, so there's no need to totally scuff this because that primer went on so smooth. If it was bumpy, you could take the Trizac and hit the entire body, just to get rid of any orange peel or dry spray or any bumps in your texture. But this came out so smooth that I'm only going to hit the window trim in that one little area there. So we're ready to mix up some paint and get to the booth. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the supplies you need to do your paint job. And store-bought lacquer thinner from your big box stores will work. This is only used for cleaning the airbrush and cleaning your tools. It's not going to be used in your paint work at all. Now the next item here, Mr. Leveling Thinner. That is my go-to. I love this product. It comes in a 400 milliliter bottle. It's a little bit pricey. I think you can find it on Amazon. Oh, I don't know, maybe for 25 bucks. What's great about this is it not only is a thinner, but the word leveling. What that does is it retards your drying. So when you spray a coat of paint on your car with a regular lacquer thinner, if you were using something like this, it's going to flash and dry too fast. But the leveler allows that to just slow down a little bit. So if you have a little bit of dry spray or you have too much orange peel after a coat of paint, go back and look at that about a minute later, and you're going to see that leveling thinner actually allowed that paint to settle down and smooth out. So I love this product for that very one reason. There are other thinners out on the market, but this is my go-to. Next up is, you could use Tamiya paints. This is their acrylic paint line But this is a solvent-based acrylic. Alcohol-based, I guess is the word for it. So this is not a water-based acrylic, and the techniques I'm going to show you are not made for water-based acrylics. That I will do in another video down the road. This is for solvent-based paints. But if I was to use Tamiya paint, I would go 50% this with a 50% mixture of the Mr. Leveling Thinner. Mix that up really well, and then we'll spray. Same technique that I'm going to show you on color would apply to all the following paints I'm going to share with you. Next up, although not highly recommended in my opinion, is the old-fashioned little tester's bottles. This can be airbrushed quite well. You would mix this 50% to 50% Mr. Leveling Thinner. And the problem with this paint is it takes forever to cure and harden. So if you painted with this, you're going to need that model to sit for 7 to 10 days for that to harden up on you. Now, if you got the time to do that and you're way ahead and you're painting your model that you're not going to be building for a while, then go ahead. This is a cheap way to do it. Now, MCW, as I've mentioned before, is my go-to line of paints. I don't typically use their lacquers, but this one happens to be a turquoise gloss lacquer. I'm not going to use on this model kit, but with their lacquer line, you do not mix. It is straight out of the bottle. All you have to do is shake that up really well and make sure it's stirred up, and put that right into your airbrush, and you can spray away. But for the purposes of this video, I'm going to be using their enamels. I just like the way they lay on. I like the way they look. And on their own, it's a gloss product. You could stop after applying this, but I like to go that extra mile and add 2K urethane clear after my coloring. This is going to be a pretty color. This is the color we're going to be spraying this bottle, and it's a metallic turquoise. Now, with the MCW enamel, they also sell an enamel hardener, number 1000E. Now, the reason I have the tape on here is once you break the lid on these, there's basically a shelf life. If any air gets in there, it's going to harden up your hardener and it will crystallize and be worthless. And these are like $6 a bottle. So, you know, if you're very careful, you can get 10 paint jobs or more out of a bottle of hardener. But one trick I'm trying, and it seems to be working, is after I break the lid and I use it, I put a black electrical tape very tightly around the lid too to try to retard the air, and I can see it's still liquefied quite well. Okay, next supply you're going to need is some pipettes. And again, I'll have a link in the description, but this is, you can buy these in bulk off Amazon for not too much money, and you got to be very careful when you use these two. You know, I would keep them separated. If you use one for hardener, toss it away right away, because the hardener will harden anything that it comes in contact with. So you wouldn't want to dip one of these in hardener and then into your paint, because you'll ruin your paint supply. So, you know, these are plentiful, and I'm not afraid to use them and throw them away as I need to. Next up is little mixing cups. Again, I buy them in bulk. I'm not worried about how many I go through, because I'm more worried about the quality of my paint job, so I'm not trying to be so frugal here. But I'll use generally one for my thinner and one for my paint, and sometimes one for my hardener, but at least 2 cups. Now you can be very careful and do 1 cup, and we'll kind of show you that when we start mixing paint. And then finally, highly recommended, is a paint filter. Now this is a big one. This is for an actual automotive, for painting an actual car, one-to-one car. But it works quite well. It's got a nice little fine mesh on there, because when you're mixing up your paint, especially once you draw the hardener from the hardener bottle into your paint, it's possible that you may get something from the cap, like a little dry speck of hardened hardener in there. And it doesn't take much. Just 1 sand grain of hardener in your paint will clog up your airbrush. So it's a good idea to filter. You don't have to, but I highly recommend it, because there's nothing worse than when you go to paint and your paint gun doesn't cooperate with you. Again, water-based acrylics, it can be done, but not with this method that we're talking today, so perhaps another video down the road. So this is solvent-based paints. All right, now we're going to make our actual mixture. Okay, first up, we're going to mix our paint. Now, MCW does include a little ball bearing in their bottles, so you can just shake this and shake it and shake it until it's totally mixed up. To go a little quicker, I have one of these little battery-powered Badger airbrush company stirrers, and that's powered by like a little AA battery in there. And you can stick that in there and turn it on, and it really does a nice job of mixing like a blender. Be very careful to never pull that up while you're still on, or you're going to splatter paint everywhere. But that is mixing it up very well, especially with metallics. You got to make sure your metallics are mixed extremely well. All right, shut it off first. Gently pull it out of there. This dirty stuff next to it is just a little bit of thinner. It's about due to be replenished, but it just thins for cleaning purposes only. And you can see that came out pretty clean. I'll just wipe that with a paper towel real quick. Okay, so now we need to open our bottle of hardener. And once you've broken the seal on these hardeners, they could be very hard to open up, because no matter how hard you try to keep the top of the lid, I don't know if it's outgassing or evaporation or something, but it can really glue that lid on, and you know, almost impossible to get that open. I got one of these little kitchen gadgets here. It's like a rubberized gripper for opening like a jar of pickles or something of that nature, and I'll hold that real tight into my hand, and then I'll get a pair of pliers with a wide jaw on there and break it free this way. This time that was glued so bad that I actually had to take it out to my garage and put this all in a vise. But be careful, because that is glass, so you don't want to squeeze with your vise so much you shatter the glass. But it took me going out to the garage with the vise to get that right. Okay, so the mixture that we're going to be using on the enamel is going to be 1 part paint to 1 part thinner, and then 1/10 of a part of hardener, just a little bit of hardener. Now, you have to be careful, because since we're using a hardener, this is going to put a shelf life into your paint. About a 4-hour shelf life. So whatever you mix up, you are going to have to use within the next 4 hours, or you're going to have to be throwing it away, because it'll harden up and be worthless to you. So I found a total mix of either 10 to 15 milliliters will do a model. 10 is on the short side. If you're really laying the paint on, you might come up a little short and have to mix some more. 15 milliliters, I guarantee you're going to have enough paint. So we're going to go safe, and we'll go 15 milliliters. So what I did is I pre-marked my cup. Now these cups have little measuring markers on there. So that is 7.5 milliliters. So I am going to put 7.5 milliliters of paint in there. And then I am going to do the same, another 7.5 milliliters of thinner, which is going to take me up to the 15 milliliter. So I'm pre-marked so I can see what I'm doing. Okay. I'm going to put my thinner in first so that I can see the line real well, and then I will add the paint. And since we are going with I chose this model in this color so that it'll show up a little bit better on the video than a real light color. So, and I always wanted to try this turquoise out. So first we're going to mix it up. I'm going to get a brand new pipette here. Get my Mr. Leveler thinner out. Draw it out of the bottle. Squirt it into my cup. And some of these, they're made overseas. Like this one already broke. Toss it. They're cheap. Get another one. You can tell when it breaks because the seal breaks and it won't draw up anything. Okay, now it's careful to get your level right. From an angle like this, it looks like it's up to that line, but if you get down and look head on into it, it takes a little bit more. Okay, so right now I'm at that line. Now basically it's 1 part paint to 1 part thinner. You can always add a little more thinner if you need to, or if it's too thin, you can add a little more paint if you need to. And you'll know it as soon as you start coming out of your airbrush. All right, so we got our thinner in there. Now we're going to get our paint. And remember, this has all been freshly stirred. I'll stir it a little bit more. Draw it into my tube. And we're going to just keep on filling that cup until we get to the 15 milliliter line, which is 7.5 milliliters of the paint to match the 7.5 milliliters of the thinner we already started with. I found that the 50-50 or the 1-to-1 mixture works quite well. Sometimes for my final wet coat, I might add just a little bit more thinner to lay that paint on extra smooth. And I kind of do the same when it comes to the clear stage, which we'll talk about mixing the clear at a later time. Okay, so I am up to my line there, and I have just under half a bottle left. I know I mixed up a little more paint than I needed to, but I probably have enough, if I'm frugal, to paint another model, or at least another small model. So I'm going to get my lid on there very good and tight. Okay, now we're going to add our hardener. And remember, that's about 1/10. So since we have 15 milliliters of paint mixed up in there in the cup, we're going to draw 1.5 milliliters of hardener. Now, little pipettes have measurements too. So 1.5 is approximately halfway up the pipette there. It's too much. Let some out. I pulled out a little too much up front here. Get rid of all that and I'll do it again. Okay. Squirt that little bit of hardener in there. Okay, I had more bubbles than anything. Pull a little bit more out. All right, approximately 1/10 of hardener. Now, you don't have to use their hardener. It does speed up the curing. You can almost begin sanding in 24 hours later if you use the hardener. If you do not, I'd recommend waiting about 5 days before you start painting. Okay, so next we need to mix the paint up in our cup. And you can do this by swirling. You can draw with your pipette and just keep squirting back into there. Just keep stirring and stirring. Okay, we're mixed up pretty good there. So the next step is going to be to filter this, to strain this. So I'm going to get a fresh cup out here, put my little strainer here. Now you could just strain it every time you fill your cup and put this right in your airbrush, but I find it easier to just strain the whole mixture now. I'm looking into the cup I just emptied. I don't see any crystals or any hardened parts in there, but you never know. So this is a good safety measure, is to just make sure you strain it. Between straining your paint and making sure you've got an extra clean paintbrush or airbrush, very important to the finish, because you're going to get dust or something in your paint job every time. I don't care what you do, you can't avoid it. But sometimes what you think is dust from around the area could have actually been something that's shot out from your gun. Some old paint or old thinner or paint particles or crystal something. So you want to make sure your gun is clean and your paint is strained. All right, we're going to go to the booth, fill our cup, and begin spraying. Okay, so we're at the booth once again, ready to do some color. So the first thing I like to do is I fire up my compressor, and I will go in my booth and just blow out towards me. And this is to remove any loose lint that might spray into the booth. Okay, and then also I'll use my little anti-static brush the car off one last time, because when you start spraying that enamel, it's like a sticky paint. you're not going to be able to stop and fix it once a piece of hair or dust falls into it. If that happens, you got to live with it. There are ways to try to fix that later. Most cases you can sand that out before the next process, or worst case, if it's buried into your very first coat and you sand too deep, you may have to fix it and give it another color coat. All right, so I did the hood as well. Then I will use a little air, blow the body off one last time. All these little precautions are what really helps you get that dust under control. Nothing worse than having a nice speck of dust. And when it usually happens, it lands right in the middle of a roof or a trunk lid instead of in an inconspicuous area. So, all right, we have paints mixed up. Gonna fill up the cup and we're gonna start spraying. Now my plan is 0.3 millimeter nozzle and needle in my gun, 0.3 millimeter. I'm going to set my pressure at 18 psi. I'm going to do, my plan is to do one medium coat, which is about half throttle on the paint, one medium coat around all the rough edges and around the door jambs and window treatment, window seals and whatnot, window trim, I'm sorry. So then I'll get the whole car a medium coat. And then my plan is to follow with 2 wet coats. So it should be 1 medium coat and 2 wet coats. Now, I may have to adjust as I go. It just depends on how that color lays on the car. So that's my plan. We'll adjust it. And if I do adjust it, I'll mention it on the video. Or you'll even see it. Okay, so first off, we're going to test out the paint on a spoon again. What a beautiful metallic. I mean, you can tell by the reflection in the spoon that we have no adjustments to make. The gun is working perfect, so no need to continue wasting paint on the spoon. We're going to get right into the model. Starting with the hood, blow it off one last time. I'm going to start the bottom edges. And even though that tape is in my way, I will paint the rest of that at a later time, no big deal. What's real important at this point is to have that top finish perfect. So I'm about half throttle here, and I'm just hitting the edges. Get some paint on there. Okay, now I'm gonna go medium coats. Just to get some color build up. Overlapping at least 50%. Now, one thing about metallics too is you don't want any streaks from your pattern, so I like to go 2 directions. I went this way, and now I'm going to give it a light medium coat the other way, and that just ensures that that metal flake is on their uniform, and it's not going to be splotchy, or you're not going to see rows in it. Okay, so that is what I would call a medium wet coat. It's not super wet, it's not super shiny, but it is building up some color. So I'm going to let that set. We're going to go on to the body. Okay, one last blow off of the body here. Okay, now I'm going to start the bottom about half throttle, and I'm hitting all my tough to get edges. Bottoms of the wheel wells, bottoms of the rockers, bottoms of the quarter panel, bottom edges of the back, bottom here, okay, then I'm going to hit inside the fender wells. Well, there are no fender wells at this point, but right inside the fenders. Just a light little coat of paint. Metallics like to walk a little bit, which means separate at joints or whatnot. So we're also gonna just hit the door jambs lightly with a light coat. probably only about quarter throttle here. And that is to get the paint and metallic to get right into those door jambs and trunk jambs. So again, it's about quarter throttle. Not very much going on there at all. If you go too wet of a coat, it's going to separate right at those lines, and it's not going to look real good. Okay. Make sure I got enough paint in my cup. Looks like I have about a half a bowl there. It should be enough to get one good coat on the body. So I am going to check my camera first, make sure I'm in. I'm going to adjust my camera a little bit. I actually made a video of this before, and I had to totally scrap the project because I didn't have this darn camera aligned very well. Okay, I think that's better. Just to be safe, I'm going to fill up my bowl. I don't like to run out of paint mid-body. I like to keep it going while it's fluid and wet. There we go, just one little tippet full there, filled my bowl up to about 3/4 full. All right, now I'm gonna do a medium coat across the entire car. I'm watching that paint lay on, and I'm adjusting my speed accordingly. And I use the light to help me see the reflection. This time I'm going to hit just the roof, and I'll come back and do the trunk. Now the trunk. Okay, now I'm going to turn it around and continue right off where I left off. This medium coat is just to ensure that you get color everywhere you need it. Because if you go full throttle wet coats, you're going to start hiding detail of the model. Your emblems and your jams and whatnot. Okay, now I'm going to hit the tops of the fenders, the front fascia, the cowl area, front of the window, back of the window, back of the car. And just like the hood, I'm gonna give a medium coat opposite direction on my big areas, such as my roof and trunk. On the sides, you don't see those stripes so much, as long as you're giving 50% overlap. I see a little speck of dust in my trunk lid, but like I said, too late now. I'll have to deal with that later. Okay, so that is one medium coat and cross pattern on the trunk and roof. By now the hood should be ready for a wet coat. Start at the back. Like I said, when I'm all said and done, I'll mask off the top side of this and I will spray the bottom. Or I'm going black on my engine compartment anyway, so yeah, on this hood I'll be able to paint the bottom black. Okay, now, wet coat, first wet coat. Full throttle, keeping my air on at all times, overlapping at least 50% with each pass. Nice wet coat. Looking at that reflection, look at that, huh? Nice and glossy. That means that I got a nice wet coat on there. I do see a couple specks of dust. I was hoping that I didn't have that issue, but a little bit of dust there. All right, we're going to set that aside, let that set up for a little bit while we go to the body. Okay, now we're ready for that first wet coat on the body. Starting at the bottom, keep my air on at all times. And if I do stop my paint flow, I'll stop it when I'm off the body, never on the body. Generally, because these things are so small, once I really probably, I keep my paint on as well, because there's no big deal. If I was painting a real car, I'd be stopping, but Okay, now we're going to start it back and forth, starting on the bottom. Watching my paint lay on there. Watching that light reflect back to me. I'm going a little bit faster because I see it's laying on there super wet. Alright, hitting the roof. Okay, we're going to hit the truck. Continue on from the top on the other side. I mixed this a little bit wet, I can tell, even though I use measurements. Okay, I'm going to hit the front, hit the tops of the fenders, hit that back, and I'm going to give a little cross pattern on that roof, kind of quick. And that is just to spread out that metallic metal flake. More paint in my bowl. We're going to check that hood. Now that leveling thinner is some awesome stuff, as I told you. You know, once this paint sits for just a few minutes, it retards the drying. So it lays on. I mean, I see almost no orange peel whatsoever. I just see a few specks of dust that I should be able to sand out there relatively easy. And then remember, we're going to clear coat in the end. I do think I mixed my paint a little thin, which is okay. It just means you better speed up a little bit so that your metal flake doesn't muddle, if you will, and separate. But it looks pretty good. Okay, speed up my pattern a little bit. I'm going to start off with a cross pattern. Kind of fast where it looks a little bit dry. And now I'm going to lay on a nice wet coat. About 3 to 4 inches away. Okay, unless we have problems with the body, that's probably going to be enough paint on that hood. Set that aside. Some more paint on my gun. Get a good look at it here. Boy, that's laying on. It's looking pretty color. That's looking really good. It's laying down so nice. Almost no orange peel. All right, we're going to go with our second wet coat. Starting at the bottom. Because that paint's a little thin, I'm going a little faster than I normally would. You can tell when it's thin. You can tell when it's flowing a little fast on you. Hit the roof, hit the trunk. Turn it around, carry over from the top down. Remember, a little orange peel at this point still doesn't hurt because you can sand. I'm going to hit the tops of the fenders here and the cowl. But you can sand and fix that before you go to clear coat. Well, I'll tell you what, that is laying on beautiful. Beautiful. Okay, I'm going to bring up my hood here because they are being painted separately, even though I got the same amount of coats on both. Just kind of look them over to see if I have a color match here. They look pretty good. Okay, now since there's a hardener in this paint, it's going to harden to the touch probably within an hour, but be fully cured in 2 days to be safe. Or unless you have a hydrator, dehydrator, then you could probably cure it in about 24 hours, and you could be very careful sanding to see. If your sandpaper is picking up paint, then I would stop sanding immediately and wait, let that paint cure some more. That looks beautiful. We're going to stop right there and let this paint cure out. Okay, so we're fresh out of the booth, so this paint has barely had a chance to tack up. But let's just give it a quick look over here. I'm not going to handle it too much. I do see a couple specks of dust in the roof and the trunk lid, not too bad, and the hood. So that's all fixable by sanding. Now, if you're looking for a factory paint job like they did back in 1967, you could stop right here. Because back then, all they had was, single stage paints, whether it was enamel or lacquer. There was no clear coat. Therefore, the finish was not as glossy as today's clear coats are. But as my video says, I'm going to take it to the next level. I want that show car finish. And these guys that are shelling out like over $100,000 for a restoration on today's cars, if you're going to have this car restored, they're opting for that base coat clear coat too. We might have loved the body style of the 60s and 70s cars, but let's face it, the paints sucked. They had a lot to be desired. So now that the technology's better, why don't we go with it? So that looks pretty good. I'm going to let that just cure, and this concludes this video. Next one will be prepping and clear coat. Okay, I hope you enjoyed part 2 of our 4-part series on how to achieve a show car finish on your model. If you like my content, please comment below and hit subscribe, like, and there's also that little bell icon that if you click on that, you can be alerted to all my upcoming videos so you don't miss a thing. So anyways, I enjoy you taking your time to watch my videos, and let me know how we're doing in the comments. Thank you very much.